What's up, guys? So today's topic is going to be about this tipping point when it comes to our beliefs and the emotions that we create. So yesterday I mentioned, if you watch the movie Inside Out, how they cleverly animated this process where you create this memory that creates an emotion. And so let's say for those of you who didn't watch the movie, sorry for some of the spoilers, but let's talk about, or let's think about a like a gumball machine. Okay. So there's a bunch of these empty glasses, right, that will be basically containers of energy. And what ends up happening is when we have a memory, creates an emotion, and then the process is that the machine fills up that glass ball with that memory. That glass ball comes down the chute or comes down the gumball machine and lands in, let's say, what am I trying to say here? It makes a stop in the center of this whole platform that's going to further lead into other outlets. Okay. So let's just say it comes down and then stops in the middle of a platform. And then in that platform, it's determined as far as, whether it's coming from an emotion of anger, sadness, joy, fear, whatever it may be, right? And in the movie, they had different colors associated with them. And so then what happens is it starts out with this memory / emotion that eventually starts gaining some energy, and you start creating a belief around that. So for example, there's a memory of well, I'll just use me for example. I initially had a fear of water that I just couldn't see underneath for like 20 feet, and I would because my dad used to just throw me into the ocean, and that's how I learned how to swim. It was like swim or die kind of thing. Thanks, Dad. Anyways, so I used to have a big fear on that stuff. I don't anymore. I have more of a phobia of sharks, but that's another story. Anyways, so let's say, that happened when I was 5-6 years old, and I created this memory of that, of being dumped into the water, having to fend for myself, right? So then that memory and that emotion gets contained in this glass container, this glass ball, and then comes to a center platform, and then from there it gets shot out into into an island of emotions, right? So like in the movie, for example, there was a happy island, there was an island for like play, and an island for, I think she had 4 islands, something like that. And I can't remember the whole thing right now, but if you imagine there's an island for each major memory, think of Disneyland, right? But now these are just containers of emotion and memories. So then from there, in that center platform, your brain will send that memory, that emotion off to that island, and when you get to that island, then that's when you start strengthening the beliefs around that memory and that emotion. And the same thing happens, I mean, not the same thing, that stuff definitely happens, right? It was just a clever way of illustrating it. And so after watching the movie, I was like, man, this is just perfect. It provides an easier way to explain how these things work with our beliefs. And so what I'm trying to get at is that there's this tipping point. Once it reaches the island, it just starts to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And the same can happen for when you dump a memory, okay? That memory starts to fade, because when it gets on the island, you start giving it so much attention because you keep referencing it back in your head, right? I'm sure a lot of you can attest to, a fearful belief back when you were a kid, or a belief like my first time when we took our first trip from Guam to LA so that we can go experience Disneyland. I'll definitely never forget that, right? So stuff like that, right? But when it comes to certain beliefs about certain things, it'll grow when you give it enough attention. And then next thing you know, it just becomes its own animal. And you know, whether it's good, and hopefully they're mostly good, you know, then awesome. It'll keep continuing to push you and it'll help you build your character. While the negative stuff, yes, if you keep giving that attention as well, it'll grow too. You know, you'll have a separate island for all your negative shit. And for some of us, a lot of the negative shit is bigger and stronger than the positive stuff, right? The good stuff. So that's why it's extremely important, not exactly to guard your thoughts and your beliefs, but to investigate them. Like I say in a bunch of my other videos, what are you inquiring about on certain thoughts, beliefs, moods, you know, all those emotions, right? Because once it hits that tipping point, then boom, you know, like I said, it's gonna take a life of its own. So take that into consideration today. Always inquire, investigate. Again, an easy way, I've said this before, is, you know, what happened? What was the positive behind that? What was the lesson that you can extract from that? And then how can you apply it to each area of your life, which is body, being, balance, and business, right? So, tipping point. Think about that, and then see what you come up with. All right, laters.